Hey everyone, I'm Tarini Sood and you're watching another episode of The Making Of. Our guest today is a firm believer that quality ingredients are at the heart of every well-produced dish. We have with us today Alice Helme. Hi Alice, it's lovely to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Okay, I want to start by asking you, when did your food journey first begin? I mean, when did your interest in food first begin?
Well, I grew up on a farm in Wiltshire with my mother, with pigs and sheep and vegetable patch, and she wrote cookery books, and so it started when I was very young.
Can you tell me something about your opinions on the food trends that you've seen this year?
I think this year's been a difficult year for all of us in hospitality, especially with the whole COVID situation. And as a result, a lot of us have pivoted our businesses and there's been a big focus on takeaway. And I think the really smart, clever people internationally, as well as in Delhi, everywhere, everybody's been focusing on, the clever people have done really short menus. And I think there's been a trend to do a takeaway menu, but be like the specialist at the naan bacon roll or not just like an enormous menu. I think there's been a trend to do an incredibly small menus and be the kind of one dish wonder.
So just carrying on from there, I wanted to ask you, how did the idea for CAARA first come to you? I mean, how did you go about setting up that business?
Yeah, so I started doing catering in Delhi maybe 8 years ago. And I was doing catering with another English girl who left Delhi and went back to the UK. And I met Ambika Seth, and she was doing chemical-free farming. And I really, it goes back to my mother and the farm and the focus on quality produce. And I met Ambika, and she was doing kind of ground roots project, chemical farming around Delhi. And she was producing these incredible, artichokes, apple sprouted broccoli, stuff that I'd never seen in India before. And we just got chatting and it was exciting, and we had exactly the same. She'd been studying in Lausanne and she was come back to be with her mother and her family in Delhi. So she had quite a kind of Swiss training. And we just got talking and we took the catering idea and realized we both wanted to focus on, as well as catering, all the other stuff which we love, the cookery classes, products, and so Culinary Arts and Research Academy is really what it stands for, which is our next big venture.
No, so I also understand that you studied cooking in Ireland. You grew up on a farm, so I think the idea of fresh organic produce just sort of comes to you naturally. Can you tell us a little bit about the ingredients that you use at CAARA and your passion for organic ingredients, fresh produce? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so Ambika's very strict about the terminology chemical free. Ambika being my business partner, chemical free and organic. She doesn't like to call it organic because she says the certification isn't necessarily true, because you can pay for an organic license, whereas chemical free, it's quite simple what's gone into the ground. And I guess what's been exciting for us is we've worked with producers all over India. So we've worked with cheese suppliers, we've worked with pasta makers to make the product that we want and to be really sure of what we're serving. And over the last 6 years since we've been operating, the quality of produce in India has just exploded. It's unbelievably exciting. It's unbelievably delicious. It's made in India. And I really think that this is going to be how food in India changes through our produce.
Now, what would be some of the obstacles that you faced? Because with this entire last year being what it was, how difficult or how has it changed that you now source your ingredients? Because of the supply chain and stuff, a lot of ingredients are now not as easily available. How do you go about dealing with that problem?
So we've always had 3 or 4 vendors, because even before COVID you couldn't be sure of the quality and the consistency and that it was going to arrive on time. And so we've always had backup plans. And I guess as much as possible, we do it in-house. So we have our own chemical-free farms, both in Delhi and outside Delhi, where we grow a lot of our basics, but also the more exotic fruits, vegetables, a lot of our herbs, all our pesto. For example, we brought the seed from Italy, so it's Italian basil, not Tulsi basil. So I guess, the best way for us is to work with individuals which we know and trust, and like develop those relationships so that they can tell us in advance if they can't get it to us, so we can plan. And I think that's how everybody across the world really has to work at the moment.
Now, Alice, I understand that you've trained under quite a few prominent chefs. What I'd like to ask you is, what are the most important lessons that you've taken away when you were under training?
So my earliest training was in Ballymaloe in Ireland. And there's a chef there called Tarini Sood, who's about 60 now, and she was like my main teacher in the beginning. And she was kind of echoing on from what my mother had taught me, but with a much more strategic, disciplined point of view. And she taught me that the quality of the seed, the quality of the soil, the quality of the vegetable is really important. But then that goes the whole way to the plate. She taught me to really respect the vegetables. So once you've got it in your hands, make sure you keep it at the right temperature, make sure you cut it in the right way, make sure you cut it all the same. She just taught me kind of respect for raw produce. And it's you can't make delicious food without delicious produce. And I think that's what I kind of hold on to the whole, through my all the different training I've done, time I spent in this industry. It's something that really anchors me.
Do you also believe that it is necessary for a chef to have professional culinary training, or are you of the opinion that if you have the passion to cook, then just about anyone can?
Of course, if you've got the passion to cook, anybody can cook. And of course, and I'm like all power to that. Like I really, I think that's a brilliant way to learn. However, I do think a stronger platform is some formal training, because there are certain hygiene, there's just certain know-how. You either have to be disciplined and teach yourself, and I think you can like expedite that by doing some formal trainings.
If you had one piece of advice to offer to anyone who's just about starting their food career, what would that piece of advice be?
I think I just said it. I think it's discipline. I think if we can all have passion, we can all know what we want, but I think we need to be disciplined in our approach, and we need to be professional. And I think that if you combine being professional and being disciplined with that whole drive that entrepreneurs and young chefs have, you're going to make it. Just keep going.
You would have heard about Maggie India's collaboration with India Food Network for the Apna Food business campaign. Now, this is where Maggie is actually coming out and offering these home chefs and entrepreneurs a chance to start their own online food channel or their own food delivery service. What do you think about this campaign?
Well, firstly, congratulations, guys. I really think it's fantastic. And I think more importantly than that, you're empowering people and giving a springboard to a whole new life and a whole new step. So, and secondly, some of the best food I've ever eaten, wherever we are in the world, but definitely in India, is in people's homes. And I think it's great for customers like me to be able to buy that food.
Now, Alice, just before we round up, I've got 3 questions that I'd like you to answer. Just answer them with whatever comes to your head first.
Okay.
Which is your favorite Indian food?
Masala dosa, definitely.
One food that is your guilty pleasure today?
Well, there's so many of them, but right now I'm in this state where I get a date and I put salted almond butter in it, and then I dip it in chocolate, and it's just heaven.
Wow.
Yeah. You can do it at home, and it's easy and it's delicious.
Now, if you could describe the change in the Indian landscape today in one word, what would that word be?
Pre-COVID, I would say exploding. Pre-COVID, I would say it's like a melting pot of different cuisines, and it's exploding, and there's authenticity and there's everything, and it's the most exciting place to be. But I think we've all had a tough time during COVID. So I think, in today's world, I'd say it's probably gone back to being slightly more cautious, and hopefully that will change soon.
Thank you so much, Alice, for being here with us today. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Thank you. I love being here. Great to meet you.
Thank you all for joining us. I'll see you again next week with another exciting guest.